Hi, welcome in for this live stream. Welcome to Cardinal Rose Tarot. Thank you for being here. My name is Cynthia, and if you're new to my channel, thanks for checking out my work. And if you stick around and listen and like this material, I hope you'll consider liking and subscribing. This live stream is going to be a little bit of a combination of things. I am going to do some divination work and tarot work, but I'm also going to be talking about some things that are happening right now in the United States, and it's political type. I mean, to me, it's human rights. It's beyond politics at this point, but many readers and tarot content consumers don't like this kind of content. So this kind of stuff here that I'm going to be getting into first, it might be boring to you. You might find it upsetting. You might think I shouldn't be doing it. That's okay, right? You can either just log off and unsubscribe or something, or you can, just wait and come back for the reading. Okay, so I personally just have to say, as a reader, like, I am a spiritual person who believes in the teachings of Jesus, not exclusively, but I do. I believe teachings of Jesus. I don't believe that Jesus would be telling the people in the community who are afraid right now. I'm afraid, okay? I'm not just othering people who are scared. I'm afraid too, okay? Because what's happening to my neighbors is happening to me, in my opinion, okay? So I don't personally believe that spiritual leaders or spiritual guides that came to help humanity, like Jesus, would be telling people who are afraid that they just need to keep doing their spiritual ascension work and not pay attention to what's going on. Okay, I think that that's irresponsible spiritualism, and I just have to say that. Does that mean I'm going to go on a big crusade to try to get the tarot community to change? No, because I'm an anarchist, and part of my belief also is live and let live. So if you don't want to be involved, if you want to not pay attention, you don't have to, and I'm not going to try to force you, okay? That's just how I roll as an anarchist. I believe, as an anarchist, not to try to impose what I believe on anyone. I'm going to share about some of it here because of what I was talking about with LAWTUBE, and whether I think LAWTUBE has a bunch of operative plants in it to try to sway the public's perceptions and opinions. So anyways, I'm just going to go ahead and get into that material. And then, like I said, after I've kind of run through that, I don't exactly know how long it's going to take me. I made some notes, but I'm not sure how long it's going to be. After that, I'm going to do some tarot content. Oh, yeah. And that reminds me, there's two things I wanted to bring in and highlight to this, just from my own personal background. The first is Uncle Dennis's flight jacket. Okay, this is my late Uncle Dennis's flight jacket. He was in the Korean War in the Air Force. Then he went on to be in the Air Force Guard, the Air National Guard, for the rest of his life. Okay, he did multiple deployments and missions for the Air National Guard in addition to his work in Korea. And he passed on recently. And this is to honor him, okay? I'm not anti-America, all right? I'm not a big pro-USA person. So that's in conflict a little bit with anarchism in some ways. But I'm a person that comes from somewhere, right? Like, I'm not just an ideology, okay? I'm an embodied person who has my own ancestry and stuff, right? So that's why I do things like this. Like, I'm not on some virtue high horse here about, like, well, I can't be proud of my uncle because he was a combat. It's like, no, I'm not a pacifist. So regardless of how I feel about the conflicts he was in, I'm honoring him here by wearing this jacket, okay? And because I'm proud of my lineage. So this is my Uncle Dennis's flight jacket. Rest in peace, Uncle Dennis. Thank you for watching over me. From Uncle Dennis. One more thing. This is my great uncle's flag. My great uncle Emil, I think is how you pronounce his name. He died before I came along. He was on my mom's side of the family. He was a coder in World War II. This was his flag, okay? He also, I may be mixing up two ancestors from that side of the family because I need to double check some of this with my Uncle Sketch because I know for sure that there was a coder and that this is his flag. I'm not entirely sure that it's my great uncle Emil. It might be a different ancestor of mine, but it's one of my ancestors. This is the one that was the coder in World War II. I'm pretty sure it's my great uncle Emil, who had shell shock from his combat experience and was never the same. Okay, he had PTSD, that's what we now call it, right? But he had shell shock. His life was never the same after his service, all right? So I'm honoring him. Am I a big flag person from the US? No, again, because I'm an anarchist. Is this flag of my family ever going to touch the ground? No. Am I going to burn this flag? No. Am I going to respect it? Yes, because it's a part of my ancestry. So these are all the conundrums that make up every American, okay? Truly, I get to claim that as well. Just because I'm a leftist doesn't mean I get to be maligned and smeared as somebody who's against or an enemy of ideas that people that I am from had, okay? So I just want to say that. Those are my things that I wanted to bring into this to just lend energy to my work before I go into my card reading. So just help me get started on track. I'm not going to do a bunch of background, but in a lot of my live streams recently where I talk about law, conspiracy, and so on, there's context for this stream and why I'm doing it. So I had commented as a clinical social worker going back a couple months. It's all in here. It's all on my channel. It's all in my own channel's history. I did some call out content, which was brand new for me in this channel because I became angered at a clinical psychologist and a life coach that were orbiting a true crime case. And I became really angry at their conduct because I felt like it was harming crime victims' families, and it was harming and targeting one person in particular that I feel was a really awful violation of this criminal psychologist's code of ethics and how he should be conducting himself. And so I came out from my discipline to say that, because sometimes academic people get afraid for some reason of accusing one another. Because I don't know why, I guess just because it's like, well, shit, what if it's me next or something, right? I don't know why, but it's like, fuck, I'm going to do it. That's part of why I became a social worker, is to speak on injustice and look into that kind of. Now that I see that this person is using the power of their credentials to try to incarcerate a woman who wasn't breaking any laws, I'm angry about that, and I'm going to call it out and speak it out, including what I think his poor conduct was doing that harmed crime victims' families of the crimes they were covering. As I started doing that, my channel intersected with some people in LAWTUBE. And I really haven't been somebody very interested in LAWTUBE until this point. It's not that I'm not interested in the law, I just wasn't going to YouTube for my law content, okay? I go other places for it. But I started noticing, of course, because I follow true crime, there's gonna be a lot of law channels intersecting with true crime coverage and covering it themselves. So I tapped into this world unintentionally, kind of LAWTUBE, and then felt that a couple channels that are doing LAWTUBE and true crime content, I felt they ripped off some of my content. They didn't cite it, they took it, but they also adopted some of it. Like, it was weird in my opinion, like it felt like creative theft. Like, they adopted my language a little bit, they adopted my affect. Like, they don't normally cuss, but in the way that I had been presenting it, they cussed, and then had to make this big show about, like, I don't normally cuss, but blah, and it was all the same points I had made in my video in the same way. Like, they were kind of taking my energy or something, is what it felt like. So I called them out. I'm not, it's like, if I'm going to have those ideas, I'm going to say, I think that might be what's going on, because I'm also from the academic world and I have to protect my intellectual work. Plagiarism's a huge problem, right? It just is. Creative theft is a big problem. So I called them out and they didn't like it. And they started coming at me and like, you're racist against Australians, and you're paranoid. Lara Art is really a real artist, because I started saying, I think you guys are some kind of bots, right? I suspected it, but I didn't really know. I just floated the ideas. I think you guys are like coming at these cases with spin for some reason, and you have an agenda. I don't know what it is. I'm just going to say it though. And then they came back in and took down some of their contents and, or comments, I mean. They didn't take down any of their content, but they took down some comments that they left on my work, calling them out and criticizing them. So part of what I wanted to bring up and why I became suspicious of them is because I'm an anti-fascist going way back. And so I'm going to share just a little bit about what I learned doing anti-fascist investigating, to just understand who are some of these extremist groups out there, and they're trying to infiltrate political spheres, right, to change political policy and whatnot. That goes way back. This isn't some new paranoid ideation. White supremacist groups and the Klan have a history of trying to get in and even do hold and have held positions of elected power and officially given power, right, to someone. So I'm someone that's been interested in that and has been researching that for a long time now. Because I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. I grew up when the neo-Nazi skinhead movement was taking over where I live, in northern Idaho, in eastern and Oregon and Washington, right? Even in Portland and the metropolitan sort of supposedly left-wing parts of where I live. It was a huge thing. It was scary. And I'm going to say firsthand, my friends, my guy friends in my town were being indoctrinated into it. They were becoming neo-Nazis. For me, that was really scary because I knew enough, even as a teen, to know I don't buy into any of that bullshit. That's all bullshit. That's fuck shit. Racism is a lie, right? Like, I understood all of that even as a teen. So when that all started happening, that's where I parted ways with a lot of people that were like, yeah, but we're down home. This is us. You're with us. And I'm like, no, I'm not fucking with you. I don't fuck with you anymore. If you're going down the neo-Nazi skinhead road, I'm not on it with you. Bye. It's sad. We grew up together. I don't like it. Okay, and this is just from one example from my life. There's been movies that have covered this called American History X, right? There's a lot of things that are out there, but this is from my life, my actual life. I'm Generation X. I graduated from high school in 1991. This is when all of this was happening where I live. Mulugeta Serra was murdered in the streets of Portland where I live by neo-Nazi white supremacists. One of the murderers of him is now out of prison and rallying in these rallies with Proud Boys and white nationalists and the 3%ers and shit like that, right? So I have a long history of studying this. I'm not new. I didn't show up to this argument and shit today. I've been way into this. It's just not been what my channel's about, okay? But now I'm going to share about it because this little group came into my world after I accused them of ripping my content off and started orbiting me, trying to harm me in some way, cast what I was saying as suspect. And so I'm like, well, who are these fuckers? I've got a long history of knowing how to research shit. So I started researching just this one little handful of people, okay? And I'm just gonna highlight it as an example of what an anarchist thinker calls the fascist creep. And it's a concept that involves where extremist thinkers like the Oklahoma City bomber, okay, Timothy McVeigh, he was way into that shit. He went way off the deep end into like militia, Aryan Nation, paranoia, and his actions and his indoctrination into that ideology, it led to him doing the Oklahoma City bombing, okay? So there's history of these kinds of groups being chaos and violent agents in U.S. history. And so they will probably now, if they're not going to like what I'm doing, they'll probably say that I'm here trying to radicalize you. And so what I'm going to just acknowledge right now is that, yeah, anarchist ideas like mine, they're considered radical in the U.S., okay? I'm not trying to hide that. I'm not trying to hide my identity, though, either. And I don't give a shit. If you decide you listen to this stream and you're like, she's off the rails, I don't care. I don't care whether you adopt my beliefs or not. I truly don't. What I do care about, though, is that when neo-Nazis take their beliefs and then start marching in the street and terrorizing other people and infiltrating ICE and creating propaganda that creates fear in the American public that immigrants are out to get us and bringing disease and things like that. We have a playbook that already went before. It's the Holocaust, okay? Those are playbook moves from like the Holocaust, okay? So it's not funny. I'm not laughing because that's funny. I'm laughing at them for trying to, because they're going to come in here and be like, she's a radical leftist. She's trying to indoctrinate. This is why we need to do this, because she's the real problem. Antifa's the real problem. They're trying to radicalize you and take over our democracy and blah, blah, blah. Well, meanwhile, we're not the ones dragging people out of their apartments in Chicago. We're not the ones shooting people in the head in the streets. You might say, well, what about Luigi? Yeah, it's a question. I don't love or hate Luigi. I understand him, but I'm not out there promoting him and saying he's a hero. And I get it, many on the left are, because they understand because he took action against something that it feels like we're powerless against it at times. But I'm not here to get into that. So yeah, they're going to accuse me of selling radical ideology here, and I will acknowledge straight up, anarchism is considered radical in the US. I first became interested in anarchism because of the Spanish anarchists after World War II, or way after, during the years of Franco. Okay, I became interested in the Spanish anarchists and that way of thinking. I'm not trying to overthrow the US government. My version of anarchy is I don't rely on those systems if at all possible. I turn to my community. So other groups have those ideas, like the Elks Lodge, like the Eagles and things, right? Those are like mutual aid groups, like let's form a club and look out for each other. And we don't need to always use the government. We can look out for each other, right? That's my kind of anarchism. So anarchists might get annoyed with me and be like, well, you're too in the middle. You need to be, you know, like because a lot of anarchism has sympathy with communism, and I'm not a communist, okay? I don't believe in communism. I believe that communism can be just as dangerous. Just look at Stalin, okay? Stalin was an extremely brutal dictator who was a communist, okay? So that's why I believe in anarchism. I believe in freedom, but blah, blah, blah. Or like personal liberty, I guess, but I'm not a libertarian, okay? But this is where the fascist creep comes in. I'm going a little bit off tangent. The fascist creep is a technique that people who do want to recruit average young American people into the far right, white nationalist, white supremacist, Aryan nation type ideologies, they will do things that's a very playbook maneuver to radicalize people. And it's basically coined, the term fascist creep is coined by, I think, by the author of this piece, Alexander Ross, okay? So they'll do things, take working class concerns and left-wing sort of concerns like, you know, being anti the wealthy, being concerned about struggle for, like, another one is Palestine. That's one that, because people take up the cause of Palestine, it's an inroad that far-right groups might try to access, because they're like, oh yeah, if you're concerned about the Palestinians, you should really be concerned about how the Jewish people are trying to erase the white race, right? It's like a pipeline, I guess I would say. I don't know how better to describe it, really. So it's a formula that they use to recruit people. So I started being like, I feel like, I wonder if this little group of people is doing that, possibly, right? Because it's out there, it's everywhere. Those are recruiting tactics that the Aryan and white supremacist groups use. And so my example that I'm going to use is after Hella and Dolly Talk left the conversation and left me alone, this other guy, Making Law Simple, involved himself. And so when I started looking into him, I actually went and started watching all of their activity on X, because they're all in this orbit of one another, talking to each other on X. And then you'll see in their YouTube videos and lives and all that, they send you to each other's work. Okay, so now I'm going to send you over to Dolly Talk. Okay, so now I'm going to send you over to Hella. Okay, so now I'm going to send you over to Lego Law. Okay, so now I'm going to send you over. So they all ping off each other and riff off each other and create these clubs of joking around and let's break down these crimes. But we're only going to cover, you know, right? So that's what I started looking into. So I started watching MLS, Making Law Simple, and he routes people to Valhalla Awaits, which is another YouTube channel and X that's been now taken down, but his YouTube channel is still out there. So Valhalla Awaits, I was like, that could be a dog whistle, because a lot of white supremacists have taken up Nordic spirituality and used those as, again, a way to try to get in with young people who are trying to explore their ancestry spirituality. I explore that spirituality, right? Like, I'm into it. I'm into Celtic spirituality. I'm into Nordic spirituality. But because other people like me might be into that don't know all of these things. They might slowly start to be tried to be roped into this network of radical white supremacist thinking. And they use black metal music as one avenue. Go research all of this, okay? Black metal music is one arena where they try to recruit young white kids. Gaming and meme culture is another one. Making memes, making games, and gaming like Lego. So that's one channel that they have is Lego Law. So it seems harmless, right? Just doing Legos, just playing games. What's the big deal? And we're going to joke around and talk about these ideologies while we're gaming together. Okay, that's the fascist creep, according to this author and according to other people who study these things, right? So I was like, okay, Valhalla Awaits. He's part of that little orbit. Now I go to Valhalla Awaits channel and I start looking at his content and where is he routing people? So he routes people to a channel called The Expert. And when you go look at his content, it isn't even trying to pretend or hide anymore that it has fascist and white supremacist leanings. Most of it is behind a paywall from weird random online web content sites that aren't in the mainstream. They're way out there, right? But to get intrigued, you're like, huh, he seems clean cut. He's buff. He seems into fitness, because fitness is another world that they try to intersect and recruit from. This dude's buff. This dude's an alpha. This guy believes in men and doesn't hate men. So I'm curious. I want to listen to what he has to say. He's into comics. He has Captain America behind him. Okay, so those little dog whistle type things, Valhalla, comics, gaming, those are areas that they'll start trying to lure young people. And young people are free to do that, okay? I'm not here trying to tell young people don't do that, because I'm teaching here, okay? So I'm sharing a counter position to that. So that's the fascist creep. That's the pipeline, and that's a methodology that's been used since a long ass fucking time in propaganda, in cells, in radicalization of public, all of that, right? So that's their route. It went from, for me, as I intersected in this world of true crime, first it was Dolly talking hella. Then I'm like, who are these people? Fuck you guys. I don't want anything to do with you. You ripped off my content. Then this other dude gets involved and he's all like, huh, let me hang my hat on your work. You still like me though, right? Oh, I'm going to send some of my followers over to you to like your work and boost you. And what? We're not enemies. It's all good, right? This is all just a big joke. So then I'm like, well, okay, maybe I'm going to look into who this guy is. I found out that he was involved in suing the governor in Michigan. So, okay, he's allowed. That's legal. That's fine. I'm not trying to change Mega's opinion. I don't care about Mega's point of view anymore. I give two fucks. I don't care. I'm just here to teach about things that I've already spent a lot of my adult life researching and looking into because of my own background and things that I care about, right? The punk scene is one arena that is still being fought over by white supremacists and anti-fascists like me, the punk scene. Soccer or football is another one. Hence this little hooligan scarf from Rose City Antifa, because there are anti-fascist soccer clubs and there are right-wing fascist sports groups, right? And so that's another stage where these fights play out, okay? So they might accuse me of saying, well, you're no different. You're radicalizing people to get violent in the streets for the left. What's the difference? Well, I'm not radicalizing you to get violent in the streets or not. That's up to you. I don't get violent in the streets anymore because I have PTSD, and I never was violent in the streets, but I believe in defending myself in the streets. So if some Proud Boy is going to come grab me by the neck and throw me to the ground, which is what happened to me in a rally, because he doesn't like us trying to stand up for ourselves and saying, we don't like your ideologies. We feel like they're taking our rights away and demonizing us and making us feel like we're the problem with America, right? If I'm now out there trying to assert myself and a big ass fucking buff dude named Alan Puckett grabs you by the throat and throws you to the ground, you're gonna fucking care about that shit, okay? I care about it, not just because it happened to me, but because it happened to Mulugeta Sarah, okay? Because it's been happening to people, my neighbors and fellow Americans, since the beginning of the US, okay? So in my case, this tiny little pipeline orbit group started with Hella and Dolly talk, then it became Making Law Simple. Then I was like, well, he's now routing me to Valhalla Awaits. I go look at Valhalla Awaits. He's routing me to The Expert, which is this buffed out alpha dude that's posting content about how funny ICE is mooning the demonstrators in the street in Minneapolis right now. And he's making that seem like it's harmless and hilarious and funny and legendary. And those dudes are so woke. And the woke left are the fucking morons, right? Look at the way that ICE is trolling them by mooning them. Okay, so this is how it works. This is from their playbook. This is how they recruit people. And so now that's it. That's all I have to say about it. I'm going to let it go after that. I added some content about Quiverful and whatever in the chat because a lot of evangelical groups get recruited into this way of thinking at the political level. And so they're doing things like the Mormon Church, like posthumously baptize Native people and Black people into the Mormon faith and shit like that. A lot of weird mindfuckery like this, all right? And that's out there. This is real shit. So you can look into all this stuff and decide I don't know what I'm talking about, and please do, because I honor your sovereignty as a person to make up your own mind. If you think this is all crazy, great. You've at least given it a listen, right? I don't care whether you follow me on this or not. My channel is not going to become about this for the most part. My channel is going to continue to be esotericism, tarot, and whatever, but because this weird event happened that I didn't go after, okay, that's what these groups are doing though. They're so predominant that it's easy to find your way in there, and then before you know it, you've kind of become indoctrinated into Pepe and like all these weird meme culture shit that's like, it seems harmless, it's no biggie. Where did the left sense of humor go? We're just joking around here. But in the meanwhile, while we're joking, we're going to throw in really racist jokes about Black people looking like apes. We're going to throw in jokes about the Holocaust being a hoax. We're going to throw, okay, it's shit like that. That's how it starts, according to the people that I have studied and learned from about these things. And then the last thing I want to say about it before, and two, there's a couple other people orbiting those accounts. Nick Starvos and then Andrea Burkhart. So Andrea Burkhart's a conservative criminal defense attorney that works out of my state. Maybe that's all it is, but her business is named Two Arrows, LLC. And arrows are how kids who were raised in the Quiverful movement identify themselves. We're filling our family's quiver full of arrows, meaning the children. So I don't know, I'm not saying that Andrea is or is not raised in the Quiverful movement, but could be a link, right? I'm just showing you how these are like trailheads to follow maybe and further investigate, right? I don't know. I don't know if I will or not. I'm not sure how much I care about her, not much. So let's say now that these people don't like what I'm doing and they're worried that what I'm saying is going to get traction. And they think that this is potentially risky for their reputation in the YouTube sphere. Their tactics to deal with someone like me, I'll show you what their playbook is going to be, because I already know what their tactics are going to be. If they decide, they might just decide to leave me alone. They may decide they don't want the smoke. They may decide that I sound a little bit too much like I know what I'm talking about and have too much appeal. They might decide we don't want to give her any legs. We're going to avoid her. But I have already had to think about what if they don't like what I'm doing and they're going to now launch an assault on my reputation and my career, because that's what they do. They do that to left-wing journalists. They do it to people that dare to go against them, like the women in the voting office that just dared to try to carry out a fair election and then drew the ire of Trump and Rudy Giuliani. Okay, look what he did to those women. So I'm conscious of the fact that if this group decides they don't like what I'm doing, they might engage these tactics. Because I am transparent, because I'm not hiding my identity. My name is CynthiaVogel. I live in Oregon. I practice in Oregon and Washington, right? So my shit is out there. And if they want to now, because they don't like what I'm doing, they could take up their playbook to attack and try to smear me so that I don't seem credible, and also even ruin my career by doing things like report me to the board of social workers and shit, right? So I'm just going to name that all now, because if that starts happening, I want you to see that I said it here first. This is from their playbook, and it's what they're going to start doing if they don't like that I've done this. So these are the things that I can predict that they will start doing. And they may already have, if any of them are in the chat, because I can't see the chat from here. I don't know what the chat says. So I'll have to go back and look at the chat later. I'm not even really planning to attend to the chat today because I just have too much I wanted to focus on. So that just has to be that for the chat. So how are they going to punch back if they decide to? What would they do to me to punch back, right? What will it look like? First, they'll accuse me of virtue signaling. They'll say that I'm on a high horse, I'm on a leftist high horse, that if I'm so good, why am I this, that, and the other thing? Why am I encouraging violence in the streets? They're going to accuse me of virtue signaling. That's one thing that they're going to do. Well, yeah, I try to live a virtuous life, okay? I'm a clinical social worker. I try to fight alongside my neighbors. I don't throw my neighbors under the bus and think if my life's fine, what do I give a fuck if other people are terrified? Yeah, that's how I try to live. So maybe I am, okay? Maybe I'm virtue signaling. I don't know, whatever. I'm just trying to be me here. But that's what they're going to do. They'll accuse me of virtue signaling. They'll accuse me of being the exploiter because I have a tarot channel. So they're going to say, oh, what does this clinical social worker think she's doing? She's exploiting people by saying that tarot is going to solve their problems, and she's using her license to do it. That's unethical. That's whatever, right? So they're going to accuse me of something like that, possibly, that I am exploiting people. So my answer to that is I'm not monetized. My answer to that is that I trust people to use their own discernment, reading general tarot readings. And I don't, otherwise, what else can I do? If they're going to complain about that or say that it's shady that a clinical social worker would be also having tarot content, I guess they're going to say that, right? I don't know. I can't do much about it. I don't think it's exploiting people. I think it's showing a part of who I am, which is a spiritual person that reads cards, just like other therapists might also be Christians and have a Christian podcast in addition to being a therapist, right? They may accuse me of being a hypocrite because I say I'm a feminist, but I do things like microneedling or wear makeup or get my hair done. They'll accuse me of being like, that's the whole incel thing, right? It's like, well, women are liars. Feminists are liars, right? I have a breast augmentation, so they'll try to say she has a boob job. She's already a fraud, right? That's what the far right men that hate feminism and hate women, those are those narratives. So they might come after my body and my feminism and say that I'm a liar and a hypocrite or something, right? Those are their tactics. And honestly, I guess gotta say, I'm probably lobbing them a softball here because they're not smart enough to know how to come at me. They would have to take a big, long time and go through my content to come up with these. So I'm just gonna give you the softball lob to you, and here are all your arguments. I'm just making them for you. Right. So, yeah, I'm a lipstick feminism. I like to look cute. Sometimes I like to look slutty. I'm sex positive. Yeah, and a feminist. Go figure. Because that's Nick Starvos. Nick Starvos isn't showing himself as a racist, but if you go look at his content, he pretty well, I think it's safe to say, he's a misogynist. He hates women. He makes fun of hoes. He talks about, so that's that. I already said they're going to accuse me of trying to radicalize you instead of them, right? What's the difference? You're just trying to radicalize them to left-wing radical ideas. No, I'm not. I'm telling you about something that I've studied and leaving it up to you to decide. And doing it from who I really am. This is my real identity. Doing it from my real discipline. I'm a clinical social worker. Doing it from my tarot channel. I'm also a card reader. I don't think Dolly Talk, Making Law Simple, Valhalla Awaits, The Expert, who are they? They're hiding their identity. Why? That's a good question, right? They'll accuse me of being part of the left-wing agenda and academic agenda because I went to Evergreen and I'm espousing ideas from a professor. They're going to say that this is just evidence of the left-wing agenda that's being played out in universities. And we need to stop educating people because they're indoctrinating people. So that's what they're going to accuse me of. They're going to accuse me of being an example of an educated person that's trying to radicalize you, okay? And then they might accuse me of being a hypocrite and a druggie because occasionally I use recreational drugs. What? But she's a licensed professional. Yeah, and I also believe in decriminalization of drugs. Okay, so I do smoke pot, which is legal. Basically, it's not legal federally yet, but I smoke pot. And occasionally I even do other recreational drugs. Okay, I'm going to be honest about that. So those are all the ways that they might try to attack my reputation and harm my career. So I'm just going to come out in advance and say, if that happens, you've seen it here, no, and no. That I called it first. Yeah, and they might go so far as to want to swarm me with bad reviews or report me to my board, in which case that's going to waste my board's time because my board is going to have to come on and investigate my content potentially and whatever, right? So I don't know. That's just it. That's all that I wanted to share about that. I wonder and think that LAWTUBE might have a bunch of plants in there that are trying to recruit people into white supremacy. That's my conspiracy angle. I'm sticking to it. I laid out an example of how they do it based on an example that I think I've witnessed in real time. And one of the ways you'll see in the extremist groups, in the links that I add, one of the ways that they recruit is through active clubs. And I think that that's what this kind of is trying to be, is an active club of gamers, Lego, Valhalla, you know, and then before you know it, you're taking in the experts' content who you know, who knows what else that guy's content has behind the paywall. I'm not going to send anyone or provide links to any of that because I don't want to send traffic to any of their work. But if you're interested and want to follow up, it's all out there and you can research it. So, and I invite any of those people are invited to come comment on my content, dispute what I'm saying. I'm not going to delete your comments. I'm not going to, you know, I will if they're, using insulting language and racist language and whatever. Yeah, I'm going to, because I believe in making my place a place where everyone can feel respected. And if you're going to use like horrible language and shit like that, then yeah, I'm not going to let your comments be on my channel. But I invite you to come in here and deny it and say, no, it's not true. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't believe those things or whatever. You're free to defend yourself here. I'm not going to stop you. So now I'm going to move on into cards, reading cards and doing a layout. What wants to come up for the collective? And I'm sorry I'm not going to be as engaged in the chat. I can tell that this is going to be a live stream that I need to not worry about what's going on in the chat until I'm done, because it's going to potentially throw me off, pull me off center, and I don't want to be off center for something like this. I want to make sure that I've said what I need to say without any interference. So that's what I'm doing here. What wants to come out for this general reading, Spirit? Let me do this. Oh, I forgot one more. There is one more thing I want to say. They may also decide to accuse me of being a hypocrite and a culture vulture because I do things like talk about other spiritual motifs besides Western spirituality, like Celtic and Nordic, right? Because I speak about things that happen in the Americas. They might accuse me of being a culture vulture myself and saying that I'm a hypocrite. Look what she's doing. She's ripping off other cultures, right? So I just wanted to say that because something like this is from my IFA practice, because I have received Hand of IFA, which is a way to follow a spiritual path of learning if you're interested in the wisdom of IFA. And that's the root religion for things like voodoo and hoodoo. So yeah, that's a legit, you know, there might be people that have a legit concern about what's this white woman doing in this African spiritual tradition. And I'm not saying that I'm a teacher of this, okay? This is something that I did to protect myself, okay? Not for any other reason, and to honor it as a tradition. And so this is something from that, though, because I keep a shrine. Because I've received Hand of IFA, I keep an IFA shrine, and this is a way clearer. So the crossroads spirit issue. This is part of that. Okay, so they might accuse me of being a culture vulture. Okay, and I just have to name that here as well. And that's fair. You know, if other people want to come in and say, yeah, what are you doing? As a white woman, I don't believe that you should be in this tradition. I'm open to talking about that. Okay, totally. Very much so. Never would I shut that down. Never would I think that's wrong or weird or anything. Okay, so anyways, here we are. Let's get into it. What wants to come out, Spirit? What wants to come out for this collective reading? Thank you for being here. Let's get into it, Spirit. So in the cornerstone here, we have somebody who's constructing some kind of a lie. But it's no longer advancing. This person, somebody was lying, okay? And the lie, though, is no longer got traction. It's been halted. It may have been something that was in motion for quite a while, and we might do a point in time here reading in a little bit, because I keep forgetting I want to do a point in time spread, and now I'm thinking from this, if I don't forget, I might do one to just see what happened here. But there was a lie being put forward, and it may have been out there for a long time. Now it's coming to an end, though. It's no longer got any traction. There's good news coming and a really positive opportunity and joyful information coming about some type of project or work. I don't know exactly how that relates to this lie. Maybe because the lie is no longer working, the lie is no longer having traction. Now there's this really good news coming in about some type of collaboration. I don't know. It's good because this good news with this page in the upright is right near this Three of Swords, which is very sorrowful. So let me figure out, or actually, I don't want to use those yet. I'm going to pull from, what was the lie? I think that's going to help us to try to get a little bit more information about. But the lie is over, right? It's not gotten any more, it's not going to advance anymore. It's being exposed, or something maybe is going to happen that makes it irrelevant. I don't know. What was it? What was the situation, the untrue situation that's no longer... Well, it's over. Yeah, like I said, it's not... You may have been waiting for this truth to come out, and that's why you're so happy, is that it's coming out. The wait is over. The lie that's been perpetuated. So this could be something like the hidden true crime thing, okay? So for the crime victim, I'm going to stop using their names because I really want to make it clear that I don't speak for them. For the victims' families who were harmed by the Lauren Matthias, John Matthias situation, for example, the way that their exploitational coverage ended up hurting victims' families, that they were purporting themselves to be so on their side and in a long time. They had to endure a lot of people really loving them and thinking they were great. That's hard. That's a hard thing to deal with, right? When you know the truth about someone, the whole world loves them and you know the truth, but you can't, nobody wants to hear what you have to say, right? It's awful. That's a horrible position to be in. And that's kind of what I'm feeling like is coming through. And then now the truth is coming out. This person's the lies have been exposed. The wait is over. There's now going to be some boundaries put in place in the upright, and new rules or new assertions or new sort of groundwork or ground rules. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, whatever loss that kept coming into play, this might have been involved with, okay, so this is another thing. Like in my family, for example, if we're talking about lies, my family is are very early victims of the opioid crisis. My brother Scott wasn't even necessarily a victim of the modern opioid crisis. He is a victim of the war on drugs, though, and a victim of addiction and the U.S. lack of willingness to treat addiction as a scientific problem and instead make it a legal problem, right? And turn it into a criminal problem. So that's another thing. Me and my family have waited forever for the war on drugs to start being revealed for what it truly is, a grift. And even the pharmaceutical industry and people like Purdue Pharma spent millions and millions and millions of dollars lying to cover their own asses about the addictive properties of OxyContin. Okay, lying, creating misinformation in the public. So you want to ask why people understand Luigi Mangione? It's because of things like that, okay? Because the CEO of United Health was doing shit like what Purdue Pharma does, in my opinion. I'm not trying to say, again, that I love or hate him. I'm neutral. I understand him, though, okay? So Purdue Pharma fought forever for it not to come out. They finally had to admit it and settle and pay damages to states who had horrible losses of community due to opioid overdose at our family. And victims who I follow, family members who's now doing their own work on YouTube, talked the other day about having gone through their trauma. It's like it opened them up spiritually in this way where it gave them eyes to see certain things. That's a real phenomenon. And maybe I'll go into that in another upload or stream or something as a social worker and a trauma survivor, but and a spiritual practitioner. But I'm glad that finally people are waking up to the fact that, like, this was a big grift, right? The war on drugs was a big grift, and look at the fallout. Look at the cost. We have some of the largest incarceration numbers in the world in our supposedly free nation and free society. How is that free, right? So this gets deep into conspiracy in the way that I vibe with conspiracy and jam with conspiracy, and might as well go ahead and do on my channel, right? Because that's what I'm doing here, right? So I blame bad U.S. policy for my brother's death. I don't blame a drug dealer who's just trying to get ahead in their own life, okay? I blame bad policy that we're now paying the price for. That's a whole other topic that, I mean, it's taking a lot of time to go into, and I'm not going to try to do it here anymore than I just did. You may be having a hard time choosing now that this truth is coming to light about what direction you want to go in. You're happy that it's coming to light, though, and that you may be coming across others now of like mind who share your interest in this truth coming to light. You feel embattled. This collective feels embattled. Like, my God, going down this rabbit hole, where does it end? And I relate, because now that all this Epstein stuff is coming out, reading the material is fucking disgusting and horrifying and way bigger than anybody could ever have even realistically thought, right? It gets into all kinds of weird fucking shit. Satanic worship, spiritual abuse, right? David Hinckley, or I think that's his name, the dude from fucking the former prophet of the Mormon church. It goes fucking deep, and it's freaky as fuck. And I think that's why a lot of people on the left didn't want to see it when Trump was putting it out there in the beginning, because it just sounds too insane to be true. And so the left prides itself on being like, we're the rational thinkers. We don't go into conspiracy. Well, look at this shit. It's a fucking conspiracy. Me Too revealed it, right? Now this is coming out. Epstein, it's a fucking conspiracy. We're going to have to face facts on the left, right? Yeah, there was satanic, weird fucking pedophile shit going on. It wasn't just one weird idea that targeted only the Clintons. It seems that there's something far deeper, okay? And there have been discussion of this going way back. Look into the satanic cult discussion that was coming out in the 90s, okay? That was coming out back then. And a lot of people in the world were like, whoa, maybe we're going too far into this. And I understood at the time, because I was in mental health in the late 90s, early 2000s, thinking, what are these satanic memories and shit? Like, how do we would know about that, right? We would know about that if that was true. Like, what's happening to these people that they think that they were satanically abused? Well, now look at what's coming out in the Epstein files. I don't know what all the material is yet, but it's some weird ass motherfucking shit that's horrifying to think about. I don't want to, but I do know, as a woman and as a survivor of child abuse and sexual assault, pedophilia and violence against women is a massive epidemic. It's a pandemic. And I don't need to believe in conspiracy to know that. The evidence is out there. So, you know, that's it when it comes to that. So we're happy now that these sorrowful truths are coming to light. We're happy about it, but we might be feeling a little bit overwhelmed and embattled about, well, now what? What direction do we go in? These people are so powerful. What are we supposed to do, right? Because we want to move into less trauma, a calmer place. Our shadow might be saying, stop looking because it's too much. Just go smoke a joint, watch Golden Girls and whatever. And I think there's room for that too, right? I think that's needed. We need breaks to laugh, to decompress, to get our minds off this shit because it is too much, right? At times. But then we're also being told, don't get too into that, because like a lot of revolutionaries used to say, weed is the enemy of the revolutionary. It makes you complacent. I don't necessarily agree with that. I believe weed is revolutionary. I'm more of like from a Rastafarian take on weed and Ethiopian Christianity. That's where I'm at when it comes to cannabis. But it's saying like, yeah, we need to try to find places to calm down, decompress about finding out truths like this. But we can't get lost in all of the illusion either. We have to keep our feet on the ground. We have to maintain a clear mind. You know, we can't be getting into this and then also doing a bunch of coke at the same time and then getting paranoid and unable to think clearly or something, right? I don't know where that's coming from, but it's out there, right? It's like something we should be thinking about. And then where things are headed is the Seven of Wands, which is protecting ourselves and defending ourselves. And for someone like me, that means being willing to defend myself bodily if I have to. I'm going to fight back. I'm not a pacifist. If I feel bodily and physically threatened, I'm going to fight back. I'm not Gandhi. I'm not somebody that's going to be willing to walk into a firing squad of bullets and be like, I am a peaceful warrior of God. Like, no, I'm going to throw down if I have to. I'm going to fight if I have to. That's my jam. Do I think other people who are pacifists are wrong? No, that's not how I roll. I need to feel like I want to physically defend myself and can, and have the right to if I want to. So that's my take on that. So I think that's probably going to do it for this reading. I'll just pull maybe an oracle card and a plant card for what's a plant spirit that can help us through these wild times. And what's an oracle card that might have a good message for us for these wild times. And then I'm just going to leave that at that. Let me do this real quick. I don't want to leave these cards like that. What are the flyers that came out? The flyers that came out, I'll show what those are here in a second. The Knight of Pentacles again, the sort of slow turning of time, moving forward progress, coming together with family, again, like we had the Three of Pentacles down here, now here's the Three of Cups. This is working together from the heart, like you would in family, to usher in a new era. This is the World card, and here is transformation and death. So we're talking about heavy shit and heavy topics, and that's what it's talking about. For many people, This looks like conversation about the new world and the new earth. And I'm not talking about the new world order, like power brokers trying to maintain control of their diamond mines and their minerals and their oil and their air and their water. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about new earth, like where the earth is renewed and people are safe and there's a spiritual, you know, like an Eden kind of thing. For a lot of people, that's their thing. So what are a couple final cards for this layout? And then I'm going to go. I'm not going to answer questions. I'm not going to engage with the chat. My apologies. I really appreciate you being here. And if you like my work, please like and subscribe and come back for more. What are some final messages for this collective about this topic and this content? Final messages, Spirit, for this collective around this lies being exposed that have been in place for a long time, trying to make decisions about where to plug in, where to go forward now that these things are coming out, what to do. This is stuff like the Epstein files, like the truth about what ICE is doing. Who were the power players involved behind the scenes? What's a plant spirit that can help us? Because I believe the earth wants to help us overthrow these people. Poison ivy and poison oak, which I think is so great. I love it so much. It's amazing. And I just said I think that the earth wants to help us overthrow these people. I do. So look at the orcas, right? Look at the buffalo that rushed to the side of the people in Standing Rock, right? Look at the eagle that attacked Donald Trump. Okay, I think the earth is on our side. I'm just going to say it because I'm a spiritual person. That's where atheist thinking and anarchist atheists probably think I'm wackadoo. I don't fucking care. I'm not an academic anarchist, okay? The ideas resonate with me, but I don't care about the academics of anarchy. I just care about community. So, to be fair and poison ivy, these are the messages that will wrap this reading up. To be fair came in the reverse. This is card 38. Let's see what she says about this message in the reverse. Oh, whoops. It's 38, not 48. It came in the reverse. Injustice and inequity are part of life, but they do not have to define your experience. This is a time when you may observe an injustice righted and fairly redressed. Perhaps you come to the rescue of someone else or are called to answer for a personal slight. You will be amazed by the sense of power that surges through you when you stand up for yourself and others. This Seven of Wands, this is exactly that. It's standing up for what's right. It's defending the poor, right? It's doing things like Dr. King called for the Christian faith to do, just like Jesus said, right? Jesus didn't say, I want masked agents terrorizing people. When would that have been a message of Jesus? Okay. The sense of power that surges through you when you stand up for yourself and others. This card also indicates a good time to advocate for others who are less fortunate. Choose your cause and commit to it because you can make a difference. One thing is for certain, if fairness is your intention, the situation will be resolved for the highest good of all concerned through acts of kindness, empathy, and courage. I love it. That's beautiful. And then this card I love too because this plant is a stunning example of the earth doing what it needs to defend itself from bad actors harming it. It is poison oak and poison ivy, and I'm just gonna read its description from the book because that's where I even had that notion. Where did I set the book now? Here it is. Poison oak, poison ivy, card 64. We have a bunch of this growing down below where I live, and it makes it hard to be at certain parts of the bank that are really beautiful where I live. But once I learned this about poison ivy plant spirit, I was so grateful it grows down there, because people abuse the sturgeon where I live. They poach sturgeon out of the sturgeon hole where I live, and sturgeon are protected in the Columbia River heavily because we have really, really big granddaddy sturgeon in this river. But if you catch an egg producing large sturgeon that's full of roe, it can get you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on the chef black market for restaurants. And so people poach sturgeon out of there all the time, and it enrages me. But I'm not a cop caller, right? So we've had to kind of figure all that out in a weird way about like how, it's just awful. It's just one example. And once I realized that all this poison oak and ivy grows there as a way to protect the earth in that spot, I just thought it was cool. It gave me goosebumps. The gatekeepers. Poison ivy and poison oak are plants that are often demonized by humans because they cause a striking, uncomfortable, and sometimes painful reaction in our bodies. But just like any relationship, these messages from the plant world are meaningful and important. Even if we do not like the message, we must pay attention. These poison plants contain a chemical called urushiol that for many people causes a painful and itchy rash. This is the plant's defense system, but it is also a part of the plant's overall communication system, and that card we pulled about boundaries is coming to mind here. Poison ivy and oak are guardian plants. They are rehabilitators, gatekeepers, renewers. You will find poison ivy or poison oak in great quantity in places that are in need of protection. These areas have, for one reason or another, been too exposed, damaged, impacted, or overrun. Listen up, world. Poison oak and poison ivy step up in to say enough. They require that you pause, look more closely, consider your surroundings, and move with care and caution. If you find yourself face to face with the messages from one of these plants, listen more deeply to what you are resistant to hear and find your work there. The medicine of poison oak and poison ivy is a loving one, even if you end up with an uncomfortable and temporary rash. This is an ally that takes the act of care and protection very seriously, often for their fellow plants and ecosystem that need to take a breath and have more space, like the sturgeon where I live. You too can provide this type of fierce love and care to your surroundings. You too can wear the cloak of boundaries, creating space for that which needs to grow, breathe, and recover within you, learning to make this space from our poison guardians. That is so cool. I just have chills, and I just want to thank my God for being with me for this reading, because for me, it may seem funny. I have a small following of 500 and some people. It takes courage to do this because it opens me up to attack from those groups. If they see this and don't like it and want to punish me for what I'm doing, they can, because my name is out there, because they could find me if they wanted to, because they could report me to my board and make my life very difficult. And they may try to do that, okay? But I mean, for me, that's nothing compared to what people are going through in Minneapolis, in LA, in my neighbors, in my own town, okay? So if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. I just gotta have the balls to do it, right? So I'm going to. So thank you, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you again for watching and being here. And that's it.